The number one question I've been asked over the last 25 years is, how do I know if a singing bowl is a real antique? Here are the 4 factors you need to consider to know if a singing bowl is an antique or not. The first is to know if it's one of the known types of antique singing bowls. We've been collecting these bowls for a long time and we know all the different types. If you go to singingbowlmuseum.com and click on the menu for bowls by type, you'll see all the different variations of singing bowls. If what you have is different from one of these basic shapes, and you can look at the overall shape, you can look at the sizes, you can look at the different engraving patterns, like this one I call the circle and dot. Other people have different names for them. There's the traditional geometric designs I call the special engraved bowls. A lot of Jambati and Manipuri bowls have the deeply cut rings around the rim. You want to identify the type, and then the second step is to identify the antique characteristics of that type. So once you know you've got the right kind of bowl, then you want to look for factors that should go with that age and that type of bowl. So you can look at things like the color, like the condition of the engravings, how worn away they are, or do they look brand new. You can, if it's a very early bowl, you can look for the folded construction, which I talk about elsewhere. There are a lot of factors you can look for, from wear on the surface of the metal to whether it's an authentic color, and I'll give you a few ways that you can quickly assess those antique factors. One way is to look under magnification at the surface of the metal. So a new bowl, like this hand-hammered bronze bowl, when you look at the surface, it looks very, very smooth and uniform. I talk about this and show examples in the Singing Bowl book. When you look at this, it'll look like a desert, just plain sand with no real character, just a smooth color. You can even see some brush strokes sometimes where the color has been painted on. They're basically painted on and then heated to make that color more permanent. When you look at a real antique under magnification and you want to use a 10x loop, a 20x is great, 10x is enough to see the surface. And in antique, you'll see all sorts of little dots and marks and different colors, a lot of character in the surface of the metal. You can see that here, but I'm talking about under magnification very closely. Another thing that you will see on new bowls are a lot of scratches. They're scratched when they're made. That's part of the finishing. And even though they get polished a lot and finished very smooth, there can still be some scratches on a new bowl, and you'll see they're usually pretty uniform. So they go in the same direction where they were made with the tool, and they're usually cut about the same depth. So the scratches look pretty similar to each other on a new bowl. When you look under magnification at an antique, there's scratches going in every direction, and some of the scratches are deeper than others. Some of the scratches are even worn, starting to wear out, so you can barely see them. So you'll see, again, a lot more variation on a real antique when you look at it closely under magnification. So the first step is to identify if it's one of the known types. The second step is to look for some of those antique qualities, the very deeply cut engravings. All right. Antique, the engravings are very finely done. They're deeply cut, which may seem the opposite, counterintuitive to some people, that the engravings would be nicer on the real antique. So the antique engravings are very deeply cut, and they're much more even. A new bowl, the engravings will be more shallow, and they're often a little wavy. They're a little less perfectly done than on a real antique. So that's another antique feature to look for. The third step is to look for signs that it's obviously a new bowl. So again, you can look at the basic types. With the new bowls, there are the most common types are the brass bowls, like this one. This is cast out of brass. You can tell the shape is completely uniform. They often have those raised castings on the inside. Those are always new. Whenever you see the raised design like that of a Buddha, or this is green Tara, then it's always going to be new. They come in different shapes. This is one shape. They're often a lot taller than that. And these are made from brass. They just make a simple chiming sound. And they're very, very inexpensive. These are the ones you see all over Amazon and everywhere else. The #1 seller on Amazon sells over 15,000 of those every month. So they're mass produced, they're made in a big, big quantity now. The other type of new bowl that are more similar to the antiques are the hand-hammered bronze bowls. So these are hammered from a disc of bronze, just like the antiques. They're made with the same alloy. The difference is they're made, in the later style, so they're thinner, which is very similar to some of the later period antiques. And they're made often a little more rustic than a real antique. A real antique can be extremely finely made, really perfectly shaped and uniform rim and really perfectly crafted. So a lot of people think, wow, it looks more rustic and handmade, so it must be older. But that's actually not the case. The newer bowls are actually made more rustic because they made them in bigger quantity and they wanted to make them quicker. So the new bowls, the new hand-hammered bowls, are generally a little thinner like that. They are making some that are very thick and look very similar to antiques now as well. Whenever you see the designs all over the bowl like that, that's another sign that it's a new bowl. That was never done in antiquity. They're always new. Those type of engravings where they paint designs on the whole thing, that's only been done for the last 30 or 40 years. You'll see they've improved on that a lot. Now they're a lot more finished looking. They're doing parts of this even seem like they're doing on a computer with computer-aided design. So you may see one that looks more hand done like that, because it is. The bowl is hand hammered and then the designs are hand painted on there. So there's a lot of artistry that goes into those. And these are done with a more modern reproduction method where they're putting the designs on with stickers actually and then doing the engravings over that. And then they're also doing some now where they're taking a Jumbati and they're putting these intricate cuts all over the outside of the bowl. So you see this kind of lattice work, very intricate designs actually cut into the surface of the bowl. And that's also something that's very new. Some people are selling those as antiques. And it's a little confusing because I've only seen those in pictures. I haven't seen them in person, but it seems like some of them, they're actually cutting that lattice style design into actual antiques. So they may be taking an old bowl and then adding this new surface to it, which kind of confuses everything in my mind. These hand-hammered bronze bowls, also for decades now, people have been selling these as antiques. So it wasn't until I started selling these that people backed off of calling them antiques pretty regularly. But even today, I still see people selling the new hand-hammered bowls and calling them antiques. So identify if it's one of the known types of antiques, identify if it's one of the known types of new bowls, one of the brass bowls, one of the heavily designed bronze bowls. Identify if it has some of the authentic characteristics of an antique, and then look for signs that it's new. So if things seem to be lining up and you think it might be an antique, look for things like the angle at the rim. A new bowl will have a 90-degree angle somewhere. You'll see machine marks somewhere. There'll be often some clues that they're new. Not always, because they can smooth them over very, very well now and really make the surface look less new, look with no edges and no machine marks and stuff. But you'll still see that it looks too perfect when you look under magnification. It'll look very, very smooth. So the final thing to know is that there are today a lot of other types of bowls being sold as singing bowls. As the supply of singing bowls has dwindled over the years, other types of bowls have been adopted and started to be called singing bowls. And even though they're not part of the longer singing bowl tradition. So these can be brass or bronze bowls, and there are a few types to look for. Again, if you're seeing a bowl that's a very different shape from what you see on my website, those very unusually shaped bowls are generally not singing bowls. They can be anything from a flower base to a water vessel. So one type are the ultra bodies or ultra bodies, the ones with a very curved rim. And these are actually called chang pots. They're used to make chang, which is an alcoholic drink. And some of those are very blackened down the bottom, which is where they actually put it in a fire to make the chang. So those ultra bodies with the curved lips are not really singing bowls, and they generally don't sound very good. Some of them produce a sound, but it doesn't sound right. You can see those in really small sizes too, the same general shape as the ultra body, but in a handheld size. And those are actually chang cups. So those were used for drinking that chang alcohol in Nepal. And they're really different from a singing bowl cup. A singing bowl cup will have that shaped rim on the inside, which makes it that it's not really a drinking vessel. If you tried to drink out of a bowl with a shaped rim like that, it would just spill all over you. So they're really different from drinking or eating vessel. The eating plates in Nepal also can be bronze, but they look more like a plate. So if it's something that looks like a plate that has a clearly round bottom and then it flares up dramatically, that's generally not a singing bowl. Singing bowls are really made from one piece. They're hammered around to get that round shape. And if you see something that's flat and then angled, that's generally not a singing bowl. So other types of bowls are the so-called lotus bowls, which are very lightweight. They look a lot like a singing bowl, like a late period singing bowl without the rim, except they're a little lighter weight and they have a clearly dimpled bottom. They often have a lot of hammering. I don't have some of these types myself because I never collected those bowls because they're not really singing bowls. A lotus bowl is actually a rice bowl. So, and the reason that's a problem is a lot of them aren't really antiques, and they could look like antiques. Since they're handled a lot, they wear smooth very quickly, and so people think that they're 17th, 18th century when they're really maybe only 50 or 80 years old. So the lotus bowls are generally not real singing bowls. The ultra body, the stand bowls are another ones, the ones that have that little pedestal welded on the bottom. These are actually Hindu shrine objects. They're used as flower vases on a Hindu shrine. And those brass pedestals are added on later. So the brass pedestals are not original to the bowl. Some of those bowls are actually antique singing bowls that they then stick the brass pedestal on. Some of them are not singing bowls, but just another type of brass or bronze bowl that they add that pedestal on. Generally, again, they don't sound great because the great sounding ones are not adulterated that way to either cut engravings or put a stand on. Another type are these very kind of low and wide for the size, out of proportion bowls. So most singing bowls are about half the height as they are wide. So the height will be half of the diameter. And there's some that are more like a third of the diameter. So the height is like this when the bowl is like this. And those very shallow bowls generally aren't singing bowls. Some of those also have a very exaggerated shape, like the ultra body, and some of them can come in really large sizes, which are actually water vessels. The really big ones are water vessels. Some of the smaller ones are rice vessels. But again, not singing bowls. These are a different type of bronze vessel that's made in India and has been, they've kind of scoured the marketplaces and found other bowls that maybe make a little sound, maybe look sort of like a singing bowl, but aren't part of the singing bowl tradition and don't have the same great sound and wonderful feeling vibration of a real antique singing bowl. And that's why it's important. It's also the cost factor that real antique singing bowls are much, much more expensive than these other types of vessels or than a new bowl. So the cost factor is way out of whack. They're, buying a new bowl for a fraction of the price of what we can source a real antique for, and then selling it for antique prices or almost antique prices in order to maximize the profit. So you have to be very, very careful. Even just last week, somebody sent me a chat on my website. You can contact me directly at singingbowlmuseum.com and sent me a similar bowl to this. pictures saying that it was an archaeological find, that it was dug up at a Buddhist archaeological site, which already sounded fishy because that's not how we find the bowls. And it was a brand new bowl like this with a Buddha on the inside, typical size. They make thousands and thousands of these. It looked like somebody buried it in the yard for a while and dug it up, so it was all dirty and had some oxidation on it, but absolutely not an antique and absolutely not found in an archaeological site. It's just a brass bowl with a lot of very fresh oxidation. Looks very bright green. Looks almost neon green when it's recent oxidation. So, and I've mentioned this type of bowl, a lot of people still sell as antiques, and there are other types that people are calling antiques that really aren't antiques. Even when you do find the real antiques, the dates are usually wrong. People are not up on the research that I've done, the metallurgical research and the cultural research, which I released in the Singing Bowl book many years ago and have other videos and articles all about that. So even if you do find a real antique, chances are the date isn't correct. You can ask me and I can confirm it for you. Often the quality isn't as good, so you can see my other video of what makes a singing bowl great, so you know what to look for in terms of the sound of a bowl. And you just want to be really careful looking at them because there's even a lot of repair jobs today. So they'll take a singing bowl. You may see one that everything looks right, it looks totally antique, but then you see a lot of like concentric circles on the inside or lathe marks concentric on the outside, and that's a refinished antique. So a lot of bowls are being refinished. They have some bronze disease, maybe a lot of heavy oxidation, and then they remove that oxidation, refinish the bowl, make it look almost new again, and you have to look really closely to tell. They can do more repairs than that. They can even combine two different bowls into one new bowl. So if you see a bowl and around the base there's kind of pitting and it's two different colors, that can be where they actually took the bottom of one bowl and attached it to the top of another bowl, made a new bowl out of two broken bowls. So there's a lot of funny things going on. It's a good reason to check with me. You can count on all of my bowls are all authenticated, all great quality, all the real thing, all really antiques, all authenticated and handled by me personally. So I hand selected each one in Nepal. I still sort them myself and take the photos and do the recordings and the descriptions all myself. It's back to being a one-person operation now. You can be sure that they're all the real thing and that they're all the top quality, because these are the best bowls that I preserved, that I held for the last 25 years, some of them, to be part of the Singing Bowl Museum collection. It's a real museum. I'm now selling them because, frankly, it's not financially realistic to keep a museum. I'm just not able to do it long term. And so I'm sharing them with you. You can get the best singing bowls that were ever made, the best genuine antique singing bowls that were ever collected, and be sure that they've gone through this rigorous process to make sure that they're the real thing. And if you're ever looking at another bowl, don't hesitate to contact me. It's a free service that I've offered from the beginning, that I'll look at any bowl from any other website or send me a picture. Somebody sent me a wonderful bowl just the other day of a very large 24 or 28 inch bowl from Japan that may have come out of a temple, because that large size is only found in the temple, and they found it at an estate sale, and it was a really excellent find. Other people have found some really wonderful finds and sent them to me. Actually, this is the last singing bowl that I ever acquired. The last that was added to this collection is also the highest pitch And this I just found last year when two wonderful ladies emailed me and were managing their father's estate, who had collected a lot of singing bowls, and this is the only one that I got. He had something like 50 bowls, and I looked through them all, and I said, I really am interested in that little one. So you never know what you've got. This is actually a really special piece. It's an early singing bowl. It's one of the smallest ones ever made, and the highest pitch that I ever collected. So you may have a real treasure like that Send me a photo and I will tell you more.